Hello and welcome to our final review of The Young Pope. We've seen the whole show now, guys.
The whole show.
That's all she wrote.
The whole
And it's murder she wrote.
thing.
I hope someone gets that reference.
Episode 9 mainly focuses on the Kurtwill case, which is a archbishop from New York, specifically Queens, who has been engaging in a lot of sexual abuse of children. We don't know the full extent of it, but it's a lot. And it follows the Pope's assistant, Father Gutierrez, and his journey in order to tracking down both the full story and the evidence against him. Episode 10 basically wraps up a ton of the plot points. Not all of them, but most of the plot points of the series. Pope Pius XIII's connection with God, the miracles that he's apparently performed throughout the show. We see a lot of familiar faces one last time reacting to a speech that he finally gives facing the public after he's been hidden for so long. And we also get to see him finally see his parents in the crowd. It deeply affects him emotionally. He stumbles to the ground, clutching at his heart. And that's the last we see of him as the camera glides up into the heavens. So now we know where the whole arc that was planned from the beginning ultimately ends up.
Mm-hmm. From a technical story standpoint, I think that a ton of the stuff in this show is extremely unnecessary. The overarching story with Pope Pius wasn't bad. The problem that I had was that there were too many extremely negative stumbling blocks and confusing stumbling blocks across his journey that do not make the story good. But when you put like certain pieces together and you take certain elements out, I think would have made maybe not like the greatest like Christian movie of all time, but it would have made, I think, at least a decent Christian story. Like if it was just certain pieces of episodes 1, 2, a few scenes from like the middle, but not like actual whole episodes.
Yeah.
And then 8, 9, 10, that would have been a decent movie. Everything else was either unnecessary, complete shock value, or just completely contradictory to like what we as Catholics should believe. It's still a absolutely beautiful created show with amazing cinematography, good, although sometimes really jarring musical choices.
I thought the acting was really good as well, especially towards the end.
Those last 2 episodes, I'm like, that's acting gold right there. That was really good acting. Jude Law really showed some really good acting chops in the last 2 episodes. I'm like, where the heck was that through the rest of the series?
His character is very aloof from most of the series.
Obviously.
So he's sort of this weirdly emotionless person, very cold when he's interacting with people for most of the series. So you don't quite get to see his raw emotion.
What's really funny is I just recently did the Underworld series reviews for my channel, and his character was reminding me of Kate Beckinsale's vampire character Celine, because she is just so cold and emotionless and will never show any bloody emotion, and it's so frustrating.
I think episode 8 probably was what ended up being my favorite. I actually disliked 9 and 10 more so because 8 I thought had several good points. If you're looking at it from the whole Catholic perspective, looking back on the entire thing as a whole, 8 was kind of like the border. See, with 9 and 10, I had a lot of red flags raised. When I first started seeing what I saw or hearing what I heard in the first few episodes, I was thinking, this is bad because it's too far on he's being very cold-hearted and saying all these things and going kind of like some things that are factual and some things that are like, okay, that's good, but you're just doing this like terribly. My fear was that they were going to start from there and kind of go a little bit too far in the other direction. They could have done a lot worse. However, there were several parts in episodes 9 and 10 when they were talking about abortion and when they mentioned homosexuality that were too foggy and seemingly intentionally so, also based very much on emotion at certain points. So when Pope Pius XIII is talking to Cardinal Spencer, and Cardinal Spencer is telling him to, quote, change your position on abortion, but like at some points it seems like he's saying like, oh, you need to like not change exactly like the church's teaching on abortion, but like you have to in practice like be softer. But other points he's saying stuff that's kind of like, oh well, but like me, like referring to like St. Thomas Aquinas when St. Thomas Aquinas talks about abortion, because St. Thomas Aquinas didn't believe that like there was life in the womb until like 2 or 3 months after conception, which is a whole nother conversation. But he seems to be like being foggy on this point, and then especially like when it gets to the topic of homosexuality, when he's talking with the other cardinal that we just mentioned beforehand. Again, it's being very vague and not in a good way, where the Pope is saying, I kind of already knew this about you, so don't you think that I'm changing my view or way of looking at homosexuality? I'm just like, oh. It might not necessarily be explaining exactly what their views are, but it's very foggy, very dangerous waters.
I think the problem with that is, I mean, who knows what the intention behind the writing was.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I can think that was either like three things from the directing point of view. It was either just poor direction and like poor script writing, and just not doing a good job at purely explaining your thoughts. If there's one thing I hate more than something that is in disagreement with the Catholic Church, it's fogginess. Because like with those statements, I'm just like, okay, what you're saying is that's really bad, but it's not good. It's not. Can you just please say a good thing or a bad thing, just so I can go ahead?
Then you're being completely scriptural, because Jesus himself condemns lukewarmness. It's just like, be clear at least. Be clear. The very end at the speech he was giving, some of the stuff being said was kind of like, okay, but he goes on this long soliloquy of this or that, and then after binding all of those things up together, it's just like, oh, this blessed says it doesn't matter. There were some things where it was just a matter of good or bad. And then later on, he got into things that don't actually matter, like if you're a man or a woman. So I was just kind of like, you kind of seem to like slip that in there. Gave me a really rotten feeling in my rotten taste in my mouth. I was kind of like, it seemed like some of my fears from the beginning were slightly justified. And I just left him kind of like,
I actually, you might not like this, but I actually got a little bit teary-eyed at his speech. That's probably like one of the things I actually did like from the series. I can definitely see your concerns, because even when I was listening, I'm just like, the words of Joker, very poor choice of words. The way I kind of like got from the speech is that it, in some ways, it doesn't matter like who you are in the end. Is like, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. It doesn't matter if you're this or that or blah, blah, blah. You know, what matters in the end, God smiles on you and he loves you no matter what you are. I think that's basically what he was like trying to get across. In that regard, it did make me a little bit teary-eyed, because I was just like, it's a nice speech. It could have used some more clarification, but it was a nice speech for what it was.
I guess because having been able to grow up and experience unfortunate events where you would hear religious people and higher up authority say different stuff like that, especially saying it does not matter if this, that, and some things, again, it's true, like whether you're a man or a woman, you know, rich or poor. The problem is he was putting things in there just like, oh, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It doesn't matter this or that. It doesn't matter. Some things that are important. And that's a huge, huge problem. And it's hard to be able to interpret that in a different way. Maybe it was an accident, or I don't know, but that's a major problem. And that's swinging too far in the other direction. I'm just like, no.
I think the main problem is that it didn't really give good clarification at where Pope Pius was at the end. Because basically who knows? We don't know what's going to happen in season 2. We're not watching season 2. Don't ask us. At least I'm not watching season 2. But it didn't...
Parables of the film industry coming soon.
No. No. I think the main problem is that it left us with too many questions. Because like you said, there was conversations that he was having with like a few of the cardinals that just weren't wrapped up. Like, it didn't give us like, okay, so what does he think about abortion? Yeah, obviously he thinks it's wrong, but that conversation, it just kind of ended because the cardinal died.
Yeah.
And actually, he was like the super ultra conservative one. Why did he go in the other direction?
I know. You would think it would be the other cardinal.
But anyway, but that's besides that point. And then when he's talking with the other cardinal about homosexuality, that conversation didn't go anywhere either, because he's then interrupted with something else. And then, of course, you know, Pope Pius, we don't know yet, but it's assumed that he dies at the end. So it looks like, okay, he finally found God, which is all nice and all. That in that regard, I think it's okay. But the problem is, him as a character and the lessons in this movie are not properly wrapped up. Other than the fact that, yay, he found God. And he was finally able to see his parents.
And he sent the cartwheel guy to someplace cold.
Good for him. Actually, if that's one thing I enjoyed, thank God for that. I mean, technically, if that were to happen, he should have actually been...
Yeah.
But I think he was being, quote unquote, merciful, saying, you confessed your sins, so yay for that. However, you're going to freaking Alaska.
I think my overall thoughts on it would be, a lot of times when I watch movies or media, it's to either get some sort of message that the director, the writer, whoever's behind the production is trying to portray, or to enter a world that's unfamiliar.
A sense of escapism.
Sense of escapism, also a sense of getting to see through the eyes of the actors, the story.
Yeah.
Something else, something I haven't experienced, which is the Vatican itself. Clearly, and many times in film, portrayals of things are not accurate. And I think most anybody watching will be able to recognize that it's not, accurate to how the Vatican actually runs any more than, say, something like House of Cards. Although it did surprise me that the plot went in all sorts of different directions that I wasn't quite expecting. Initially, I was expecting it to be more of a political show with all of just the cardinals moving around behind the scenes, but Cardinal Vogello's arc kind of just ended in the middle of the show, and then he just became sort of a quasi good guy. Kind of, he was just sort of following the Pope around. He's just one of the Pope's posse now. Cardinal Spencer, there was also a lot of very complicated stuff going on with him and Pope Pius, where he was the only character that Pope Pius really opened up to for a while. But then he died, and I don't know if we fully got the conclusion of that. With a lot of these things, I guess I have to go back to thinking it must be some aspect of the style of Italian surrealism. Although we all went to school for film, oftentimes I feel like some of the mistakes that student films go into is they try to be too abstract, because it's viewed as, if you're too straightforward, it's not artistic enough. So you have to make your message so cryptic that the audience can't possibly get it until you go up on the stage afterwards when you're screening and give the explanation that, oh, this character is an analogy for this. This character is an analogy for this. And you never know that the first time watching. You have to go back again and watch it all over again to fully get it. For something as long as a 10-hour TV miniseries, which is now going to be a show, it's a bit much. For a short film, okay.
Even a longer film, I probably wouldn't even minded that. I mean, I had to watch extremely abstract, artsy, movies in film class a dozen times. Thanks, Dr. Schaefer. I hope
Don't you just love, what is it?
Last Year at Marienbad. That was a French surrealist kind of film. I still hate that movie.
I was thinking even closer home, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
As artsy as that one is, it's more like American artsy. You can get it. Or maybe us film critics can get it. But still, that's like another movie I can appreciate for its artisticness, but I don't like it. I agree. I mean, because if The Young Pope was just a movie, I think it would have been a little bit better. It's really funny because you were talking about as a film art student, you want to try and make things abstract, and then you can go and explain, let me tell you what it means, kind of thing.
Sound all smart.
Yeah. As soon as the final episode came about, I'm just like, this felt like a student film. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, because there are plenty of student films which are good. I kind of mean it in the sense of it was a student film which the director, showrunner, whatever, really wanted to explain. This is what all of this means within the show.
I did not hate the show. There was a lot of it I really liked. There were a lot of moments in episode 9 and 10 that I really liked, but then there would just be these lines that were so annoying. Quintessential example of perhaps the best and the most frustrating in the show, I think, to all of us, is the scene where Pope Pius gets a vision, I guess, or a dream of all the popes past. Where first we see a guy come out of the door that, for all I could have guessed, looks like Pope John Paul II.
Right,
It's like,
right.
Is that a cardinal? It just happens to look like him. And then I realize as he's walking through the room, and there's just all these other popes throughout history, it's like, oh, that is supposed to be Pope John Paul II.
Yeah.
And then we finally see Pope Pius XIII, little Lenny, looking across this table at this incredible array of different papal vestments and uniforms and styles all throughout the ages, even going back to the Apostle Peter.
Yeah.
It's incredibly artistic.
Right. Oh,
yeah, gorgeous.
I think we all loved that.
Yeah.
That was like
that was great.
But just internally in my mind, I was like, now what's the dialogue going to be?
Yeah.
Pope Pius asks, can you guys give me any advice that all your collective experience throughout the ages leading the church has been? And one pope up at the front looks at him and says,
in the end, more than in God, it is necessary to believe in yourself, Lenny.
I was like,
I mean, like, no duh.
And then Pope Pius has the same reaction we do, and he's like, artistically, it was amazing. The dialogue itself was meant to be something with a meaning, but it was cryptic and brief and just didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
I really did want to like this show after we got a lot of comments from people saying, I do think it's a good show. You guys should watch it. You guys prematurely judged the trailer. After all of this, thinking back to the initial trailer as a piece of marketing, I would say, yeah, it was misleading in that I got more Da Vinci Code, political theater type stuff.
Yeah.
I got those vibes from the trailer. The final product was something far more artistic and elevated and deep, but not something that was able to fully bridge its way to me understanding and being fully able to accept it and love it, I guess.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's probably one of the best ways to summarize the show.
Next, we'll be watching Veggies in the House. It'll be a nice change of tone.
Do not make me watch The Young Pope again.
Would you rather watch The Young Pope or Veggies in the House?
I would rather watch The Young Pope again.
Veggies in the House.
I would watch The Young Pope
as
again.
much as it pains to say it, Veggies in the House.
I would watch The Young Pope again just
Veggies
so.
in the House.
Let me
Guys.
In the house.
There's a better way to do this. I'm gonna run off to the piano now.
Okay, engage in Mortal Kombat.
Dave's fault.
Here's my only reason why I would say that. I don't want to destroy my childhood by watching that crap. It's like me watching the Michael Bay Transformers movies. It's awful.
This is worse.
Never mind. This is way besides the point. We're going way off topic.
All I know is that I kind of want to just up my rating for Silence just so I could put this lower than Silence. So
Silence was far better than this.
Close. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Guess I'm closing out now because David's gone. David has actually walked off the set, guys.
Do you want? No. Do you want? I'm going to go ahead and end it this way. Bye, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
Okay.
Bye, Joe.
Thanks for watching, guys, because you're the ones that actually stuck with me. We'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.